Hey guys, today we're heading back to 13th century Italy, where you're a poorly paid mercenary wandering the sunburnt roads of Tuscany with a crusty bedroll one working boot and absolutely no idea when or if you're getting paid. You probably won't survive this campaign with your sanity intact, but at least your socks are already halfway to sainthood. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from. Now let's open our eyes under a stained tent canopy, right as the fire goes out again. You wake to the scent of someone else's breakfast, and your own boots smoldering faintly near the ashes of last night's fire. Not literally on fire, just singed around the heel where you tried to dry them and forgot again. It's early. The sky is still a muddy blue-gray, and camp is already stirring. Somewhere beyond the hill, roosters are arguing in Latin. Closer by, you can hear your captain swearing in 3 dialects of Italian, none of which you actually speak. You've been marching with this company for 4 months now, and still have no idea what half of them are saying. But tone, you understand. And that tone says someone used the last of the wine vinegar to wash their socks. You sit up slowly, one knee cracking like an old drawbridge, and peer into your satchel. It contains, in order of priority, half a brick of cheese that smells like betrayal, a hunk of bread with what might be a fossil inside a strip of jerky, and a button that used to belong to someone who's now mysteriously disappeared from camp. You put the satchel down. Today is a March day, or maybe a wait day, hard to say. Your captain mentioned Florence yesterday with a dismissive hand wave, and will camp on the south edge. But that was the same tone he used when he promised your wages would arrive any day now. Historians still argue whether 13th century condottieri, mercenary captains, were unusually vague or just chronically optimistic. You pull on your boots. The left one resists. The right one sulks. Together they give you the gait of a man who once fought a goose and didn't win. Outside the camp is a mess of tents, half-dug latrines, someone's drying cloak, and a pile of helmets that may or may not contain living creatures. You squint at one. It shifts slightly. You move on. Your tent mate Aldo is already sharpening his spear in a manner that implies it recently disappointed him. He nods at you and gestures to the stew pot. Morning, he says. Breakfast. You peer in. It appears to be yesterday's stew, now with bonus gravel. Delicious, you lie. He shrugs. At least it's warm. It's not. You eat anyway. The gravel adds crunch. As you chew, you look around at the rest of your bandmen from Genoa, Milan, Sicily. One guy who claims to be from somewhere north of the Holy Roman Empire, but south of all the fun. None of you wear the same colors. That's part of being a condottiero's crew. You're less an army and more a collection of highly mobile, underpaid strangers in various shades of grime. Mercenary work in 13th century Italy is strange. You're hired not to win wars exactly, but to make the other side reconsider having them. The cities Florence, Pisa, Siena, Milan keep waging tiny feuds over trade routes, taxes, or who insulted whose fresco. They don't want to risk their own citizens, so they hire people like you, from far away, with no loyalty except a coin that still hasn't arrived. You remember when you signed up. The recruiter wore an actual feather in his hat, and promised steady pay, regular meals, and the glory of battle. You've so far received a wooden spoon, half a boiled onion, and mild trench foot. You rise, stretch, and immediately regret both actions. Your cloak smells like horse. Not your horse, someone else's long gone, but the scent remains like a passive-aggressive memory. You walk down the path between tents and find the quartermaster. He's counting saddle straps and muttering about rations again. Any sign of pay today, you ask? He doesn't look up. Same as yesterday. So, no, he grunts. Consider your stew payment enough. You think of the gravel. Decide not to push your luck. Behind the supply tent, someone is attempting to repair a broken wheel with a chicken. Not in a useful way, the chicken is just standing on it, but the man is talking to it, like it's helping. You move on. There's talk of a march, south, toward Florence, or maybe west, toward somewhere with olives. Someone swears the captain said Luca. Someone else says he said look up. You consider flipping a coin, but remember you haven't seen one in weeks. You sit on a log finish chewing your cheese and wonder briefly what normal people do. Farmers, bakers, innkeepers, people with roofs, people who don't wake up to ants in their helmet or get yelled at in 10 accents before sunrise. Then again, they don't get to see the sunrise like this. It's slow, pale, and gentle, the kind that turns the sky peach and makes the dew sparkle like everything might actually be fine. It's not, of course. You still haven't been paid. Your captain is probably lying. Your boots are plotting mutiny. But the light is beautiful, so you sit a little longer. The march can wait. You're standing in the lineup again. Another dusty morning, another roll call where your name is either mispronounced, skipped entirely, or replaced with that one with the limp. You raise your hand anyway, like a schoolboy trying not to be called on. The scribe scratches something down with a quill that looks suspiciously like it came from that chicken, the one that bites. Your company has assembled in a loose cluster of weaponry flaking armor and vague attention spans. No uniforms, of course, just variations of worn leather, patchy wool, and whatever metal hasn't rusted into art. You glance down at your tunic. It might have been blue once, or possibly the tunic just belonged to someone who liked blueberries and poor aim. The captain rides up late. As always, he's on his third horse this week, not because he lost the others, but because he keeps borrowing replacements from nearby stables. He's wearing a feathered hat that's at least 2 battles out of fashion and a sash that somehow manages to insult 3 rival city-states just by existing. He lifts his hand dramatically. We march. He says it like he's announcing a wedding or a funeral, possibly both. Someone behind you mutters. Again, another voice. We just got here. You glance back. They're right. You've been camped near this olive grove for barely 2 nights long enough to dig a shallow trench for sanitation and lose 2 spoons. The spoons are still missing, suspiciously missing. Still you pack up. The tent collapses in protest. Your blanket rolls itself into a knotted mess as if trying to escape. Aldo tries to strap his shield to his back and ends up briefly concussed. You help him up. Did we even win anything yet? He asks. You pause. Define win. He grunts and shoulders his spear. You take up your position in the line somewhere between a one-eyed archer named Hugo and a man known only as Milo the Whisperer, who never speaks above a hum and has at least 4 knives, none of which are for eating. The company begins to move. Marching with a mercenary company in 13th century Italy is less like a parade and more like herding reluctant goats through molasses. Your boots squelch in last night's mud. The sun, previously pleasant, has now turned into a judgmental spotlight, revealing every wrinkle, patch, and sweat stain you possess. You pass through fields of wild thyme and scrub past peasant huts with shutters half closed where curious faces peek from behind the wood. You smile, thus they don't wave back. Mercenaries aren't exactly welcome guests. Too many stories, too many accidental fires, too many chickens that vanish. Historians still argue whether Italian peasants of the 13th century viewed mercenaries as necessary evils or just very confusing travelers with weapons. Based on the glares, you're going with the latter. By midday, your group halts near a crooked signpost pointing vaguely toward Pisa Luca, or possibly please stop here. No one's sure. The map, of course, is missing. Last seen in the hands of the quartermaster's apprentice, who may or may not have used it as fire starter last week. The captain climbs a rock and gestures with one gloved hand. We head west, toward the hills. We're meeting with a scout at dusk. You squint at the horizon. Hills is generous. It's more like a collection of argumentative bumps. Aldo leans over. Did he say scout or shout? Does it matter? He shrugs. Not really. The march resumes. You pass through a small grove of cypress trees, tall and still like green-robed monks. Somewhere nearby, a lute is playing. Poorly. Likely one of the Genoese who thinks he's composing an epic about himself. The lyrics mostly rhyme war with more and shield with meal. It's ambitious. You continue marching. The dirt path gives way to loose gravel. Every step now involves some level of sliding and regret. Your feet are blistering again. You pretend not to notice. Everyone else is doing the same. No one wants to be that guy who asks for a break, because then everyone has to pretend they weren't already about to collapse. You reach a ridge by late afternoon. The sun is now slanting low enough to stab you in the eyes through every other tree. Someone trips over a root. Someone else curses at a bee. Milo the Whisperer slaps something in the air and smiles faintly. You all take that as a bad sign. The captain finally calls a halt in a clearing that looks exactly like every other spot you've ever been ambushed in. You collapse onto a rock and empty your boot of pebbles. Aldo hands you a wineskin. Olive water, he says. You sip, immediately regret it. That's very olive. He shrugs. At least it's not vinegar. You stare into the distance. Somewhere beyond those hills lies the city you're supposedly protecting, or attacking, or marching near in a way that suggests vague menace. The orders were unclear. They always are. The only thing that's ever certain is that the money hasn't arrived. Someone behind you sighs. They better pay us this time. You nod, chewing on a piece of bread that could double as armor plating. They always say that. Do they ever mean it? You glance at your pouch. Empty. You look up at the sunset, beautiful and absurdly pink, and think probably not. Your crossbow hates you. It has hated you for weeks, possibly since you borrowed it from that Swiss fellow who vanished during the rainstorm and left nothing behind but a half-eaten sausage and a song about goats. You keep trying to like it to build rapport, wipe it down with oil, Adjust the cord tension, talk to it like it's a moody dog. It rewards you by misfiring exactly when it would be most heroic not to. Right now, as you crouch beside a shallow ditch under the blazing afternoon sun, the thing refuses to latch. The cord sags like a bored laundry line. Your bolt is crooked. Your target, an old tree you've been using for practice, is covered in mockery. Aldo's arrow hit it dead center 5 minutes ago. You're still trying to reload. Maybe you're holding it wrong, he suggests helpfully, biting into a wedge of yellow cheese that smells like damp regrets and smoky hay. Maybe it is holding me wrong, you mutter, sweating into your collar. You yank the lever one more time. It clicks, triumphantly. You raise the weapon, take aim, breathe, release. The bolt sails wide, hits a bush, and disappears forever into a patch of thistles that hisses slightly. You pretend not to hear that. Aldo claps once. At least you're keeping the shrubbery nervous. You groan and flop onto your back in the dirt crossbow across your chest like a stubborn cat. It's midday now, and the camp has paused to reorganize, which is mercenary code for nap in shifts while pretending to inventory things. You watch a group of men playing dice with bones that may or may not be leftover stew ingredients. The captain is nowhere to be seen, likely strategizing, which usually involves an empty wine jug and a stolen chair from a church. You sit up and dig into your rations. Today's offering 2 hard crusts of bread, a strip of smoked fish that could stop a knife, and the other half of the cheese Aldo so generously shared. It was wrapped in wax. The wax is missing, possibly eaten by mistake, possibly replaced with candle. You bite into the bread and immediately regret every choice that led to this moment. Medieval mercenary food is not cuisine. It's survival. You're lucky if it's edible. You're blessed if it's not actively trying to escape. Some days, even the rats pass by your rations with a look of sympathy. You glance at your cheese, it winks at you, or melts slightly. Hard to say. Historians still argue whether 13th century Italian mercenaries were actually fed by their employers or simply scavenged everything short of the banners themselves. Based on your current lunch, you suspect it was the latter. A small commotion breaks out near the baggage cart. A man from Verona, named Forgotten Mustache, unforgettable, is shouting at someone about a wineskin. You hear the words, "Mine stolen, and I will duel you with a spoon." No one moves. Everyone just watches with the slow curiosity of people who've seen this exact argument 6 times already. You sigh, and Aldo hands you a plum. It's overripe and tastes like guilt, but it's soft and not cheese, which is a win. The crossbow sits beside you, silent, smug. You clean it anyway, not because it works, but because that's what you do. You keep your gear ready. You tie your laces. You patch your tunic. You stay alert, because you never know when the captain will shout form ranks, or we ride, or where did I put that chicken? Speaking of which, the camp chicken is back. Not the same chicken, nobody owns her, but she moves from group to group like a tiny clucking spy. Today she stops beside you, pecks at a bolt, and then at your shin. You look at her. You think you could shoot better than me. She blinks, which is not a no. Aldo chuckles. If she lays an egg on your crossbow, I'm calling it a miracle. The chicken hops away triumphant. You resume cleaning, occasionally glancing toward the woods beyond camp. It's quiet. too quiet, which is either comforting or extremely not. You are promised an engagement this week, a skirmish, nothing major, just enough to shake the rust off your armor and possibly earn a small bag of silver. Not glory, not fame, just silver. That thing your captain keeps promising with the same enthusiasm he uses when talking about next week's stew rotation. You haven't seen a coin in 16 days. You've seen 12 blisters, 5 bad omens, 3 mysterious disappearances, and 1 prophetic dream involving a dancing pig and the Pope, but not a single denaro. You lean your head back and watch a hawk circle overhead. It's probably looking for rabbits or corpses. You hope it finds neither. Then you hear it. A twang, not yours. The kind of twang that means someone's weapon didn't misfire. Everyone goes still. You sit up slowly, hand on your belt, already regretting the cheese again. From the trees, a scout appears, one of yours, thank heaven, with a scroll tied to his belt and a face full of apology. The camp watches as he walks to the captain's tent. Moments later, the captain emerges holding the scroll like it might bite him. "We march again," he says grimly. Everyone groans. "Southwest," he adds, "toward Siena." Someone near you sighs, "I thought we were avoiding Siena." Another, "I thought we were guarding Siena." The captain shrugs. Orders change. You exchange a look with Aldo. Then you grab your gear, toss your crossbow over your shoulder, and stand. The crossbow creaks softly, possibly in agreement, possibly in mockery, probably both. You march anyway, because no one pays you to question. They barely pay you at all. You are woken up the next morning by a rock, not a bandit, not a trumpet, not a rooster learning Gregorian chant. Just a rock, small round, and recently airborne, bouncing gently off your forehead after being tossed by a panicking squire who has lost both his nerve and his noble. You blink groggily. The sun isn't even up yet. There's mist clinging to the grass and something that smells faintly of goat in the air, which makes sense since you're currently lying near the goat cart, which somehow always ends up near your tent. The boy who threw the rock is about 14, wearing armor that would make a scarecrow look well dressed, and holding a helmet that's clearly too polished to have seen battle and too round to be practical. "They told me to find someone who looks experienced," he says, "or at least not asleep." You sit up slowly, and your first thought was to throw something at my face. He frowns. "Well, you flinched, so you're alive." It's hard to argue with that logic. The boy introduces himself as Pietro nephew of some bishop from somewhere vaguely important. He's been assigned to your company for seasoning, as if warfare were a pot of stew and you were the sprig of rosemary meant to flavor him. He looks at you earnestly. "They said I should shadow a veteran." You point to Aldo, who is currently snoring loudly into a loaf of bread. "They said not him." "Fair. So now you have an apprentice." "Great." You stand, stretch, and try to remember what it was like to be idealistic. It's difficult. You're distracted by the fact that your left boot is somehow wetter on the inside this morning, and your satchel smells like thyme, even though you haven't seen thyme in a week. Pietro trails behind you, like a nervous duckling in slightly too shiny greaves. He asks a lot of questions, some of them reasonable, like, "How do you tighten a crossbow string?" Others less so, like, "What if the enemy has a dragon?" You give him a flat look. "A real one?" He shrugs. "There are stories." You decide not to answer. Breakfast is hard bread and harder cheese. Pietro refuses to eat his until you do, a test of trust apparently. You oblige, and he nods solemnly, then bites into his with a crack, loud enough to wake the goats. You teach him how to roll his bedroll. He somehow manages to get tangled in it. You show him how to clean his sword. He almost stabs a cooking pot. You explain the art of not looking too competent in front of the captain, lest you get assigned every job that requires both knees and a spine. He listens, he nods, and then he asks, "Why do they call it a short sword if it's longer than my arm?" You pause. "To confuse the enemy." He blinks. "Really?" You nod. He believes you. Later, you help him fit his helmet. It's polished to a mirror shine and reflects your face back at you looking deeply unimpressed. He smiles. "Looks good. It looks like it's trying to eat your head." He beams anyway. "The bishop said it was custom forged." You mutter, "Probably by someone who specializes in pots." To be fair, medieval helmets came in many shapes, not all of them reasonable. Historians still argue whether the more elaborate ones were designed for intimidation, identification, or simply because the blacksmith got bored and added extra spikes. Pietro's has a plume, a bright red one. It's currently attracting every fly in the region. As you march, he sticks close, whispering questions, dropping his sword once, tripping twice, and somehow managing to sing a marching chant, off key and off rhythm. He has the enthusiasm of a golden retriever and the balance of a stool with two legs. The others eye him warily. Aldo mutters, "You babysitting now?" You nod. Apparently. He eyes the plume. He's going to get us all spotted from a mile away. You sigh, "It'll be fine, unless the sun hits it, or wind, or birds." You pass a column of farmers hauling hay who stare openly at the sight of the bishop's nephew walking beside you like a tomato on stilts. Pietro waves. The farmers do not wave back. By midday, the boy is limping. You stop to adjust his greaves. One of them is twisted backward. "How long did you wear it like that?" He shrugs. "Since this morning?" You stare. He grins. You adjust his armor. He winces. "Uncle said pain builds character." You reply, "So does a properly fitted buckle." You sit him down, give him water, and against your better judgment, half a piece of your softer bread. You don't know why you do it. Maybe because once long ago, someone did the same for you. Maybe because, like it or not, you're the veteran now. He watches the others clean their weapons, patch their cloaks, trade sardonic jokes. "Are we heroes?" he asks. You stare at him. "No," you say. "We're mercenaries, but we fight battles. We watch battles, occasionally survive them. Mostly we wait to be paid." He frowns. "Doesn't sound very glorious." You nod. "That's the point." You stand and shoulder your gear. He stumbles up after you, and then, without warning, you hear it. A rustle, a sharp whinny, the pounding of hooves. Everyone stops. A horse gallops into camp, rider slumped, banner dragging. It's a courier. He shouts, "Enemy skirmishers, east of the ridge. Prepare to move." The captain emerges from his tent hat, askew. "Mount up," he bellows, though no one has horses except him. The camp erupts into motion. You grab your pack, your weapon, your helmet. Pietro grabs his two-polished sword and tries to look brave. You mutter, "Stay behind me?" He nods, and just like that, you're marching again. To who knows where. behind a boy who still thinks war is poetry and that plumes are subtle, behind a captain who hasn't paid you, behind a dream that always turns out to be someone else's. But you march anyway, because that's what you do. The sun is a distant smudge behind pale clouds as you arrive at the olive grove, your supposed destination, though to be fair, it could also be the wrong olive grove. There are a lot of them, and nobody thought to bring a proper map. The courier swears this is the place. The captain swears at the courier, and you swear quietly at your own boots, which have entered the stiff, resentful stage of dampness. Pietro looks around in awe, pointing at every tree like it's a miracle. Is this where the enemy is? You squint. It's where the olives are. He frowns. Same thing. Not quite. The company sets up camp outside the grove, but no one bothers unpacking fully. The atmosphere is too tense, too full of weight, and see that particular military mood where no one knows what's happening, but everyone pretends they do. You know it well. You're posted near the edge, tasked with watching the road, not guarding it, watching. Guarding would imply a threat. Watching means boredom, which means you'll be the first to see trouble when it inevitably arrives. That's how it works. Pietro is with you again, helmet slipping sideways, plume wilting in the humidity. He stands too tall, too rigid the way new recruits do before they learn the value of slouching. You give him a rock to sit on and tell him not to wave at anything that moves. He tries not to fall off the rock. You stand quietly, crossbow slung over your shoulder, eyes scanning the distant curve of the road. In the background, the others murmur and shuffle the sound of men pretending to be alert, while slowly surrendering to heat and repetition. The grove is peaceful. The leaves sway in slow whispers. Birds chirp like nothing is happening. The air smells faintly of earth resin and disappointment. You check your pouch again. Still empty. Still no pay. You'd laugh, but the last time you laughed, you got assigned to dig latrines. Pietro nudges you. Do you think they forgot about us? You smirk. If we're lucky. The captain paces near the center of camp, grumbling into a map that's more smudge than guide. He gestures wildly to the quartermaster, who responds by adjusting his hat and nodding in ways that don't match the conversation. Do you ever feel like we're not part of the plan? Pietro asks. You reply, I feel like we are the plan, the expendable part. He looks concerned, but we're professionals. You chew on a grass stem. Professionals don't get paid in promises. Historians still debate whether mercenary companies in the 13th century were respected elite forces or expendable meat shields with nice boots. Based on your current lack of coin and surplus of sunburn, you're leaning toward the latter. Midday drags. A donkey brays somewhere angrily. Someone sneezes into their helmet. The captain makes another speech about readiness that includes the word valor too many times. You consider lying down in the dirt, just to avoid hearing it again. Then in the distance you hear it. Not hooves, not drums, snoring, loud, unapologetic snoring. You and Pietro follow the sound and find two of the Genoese leaning against an olive tree, mouths open, weapons in laps. One of them is drooling slightly onto a belt buckle. The other has balanced a plum on his forehead. You cough loudly. They jerk awake. One drops his sword. The other eats the plum out of reflex. Pietro giggles. You glare at him. Never laugh during an inspection. Why? Because then they'll make you do it next time. He sobers. You return to your post. Nothing has changed. The road is still empty. The olives still sway. Your stomach still growls. Lunch is called, though lunch is generous. The cook's boy hands out a pot of what can only be described as soup, in the same way that water that once met a vegetable counts as soup. It's gray. It jiggles. It contains one piece of turnip, possibly symbolic. You and Pietro sit on a stone and share the pot. He tries to be polite, fails, gags once. You finish it out of duty, if not desire. I don't think that was food, he says. You nod. You'll get used to it. You don't. Afternoon wears on. Shadows stretch. Pietro draws in the dirt with a stick. You spot him sketching a helmet with wings. Don't let the captain see that you mutter. He might think you want to lead something. He wipes it out quickly. You inspect your gear. The crossbow still hates you. Your knife is sharp but chipped. Your boots have developed a lean to the left. You think about your cousin, the one who opened a bakery in Pisa. He probably has soft shoes and a roof, probably makes bread that isn't full of betrayal. But he also has taxes and a mother-in-law, so it's a draw. The sun begins to dip. Still no sign of the enemy. Pietro asks, "What if they never come?" You glance at him. "Then we win by default." He smiles. "That's the best kind of battle." You nod. "Almost as good as one that comes with coin, which this one won't." You can already tell. There's a look the captain gets when payment isn't coming, a sort of forced optimism with sweaty undertones. He has it now. Evening falls. The road stays empty. You stretch, stand, and toss a pebble into the brush. It rustles. You freeze. Pietro grabs his sword, stands too quickly, trips over your foot, crashes into a bush. Nothing emerges. You help him up, brushing leaves from his armor. "No dragon," he says. You grin. "Just you." He looks disappointed. "I wanted to fight something." You raise an eyebrow. "You fought gravity." "That counts." Camp settles in. Torches lit. Weapons stacked. No enemy, no battle. Just silence punctuated by someone retelling the story of the time their cousin kissed a noblewoman and was immediately conscripted. You lie on your bedroll, staring up at the stars as they slowly appear. Tomorrow you'll march again, or sit again, or wait again, and probably not get paid again. You're awakened by the unmistakable sound of someone shouting in bad Latin. This can only mean one thing: the camp priest is up and has either spotted a heretic, stubbed his toe, or misread his morning psalm again. Possibly all three. You groan and sit up. The air is still damp from the night, and your blanket has adopted the texture of wet parchment. Pietro is already awake, kneeling beside his bedroll, with hands clasped like a child reenacting a fresco. His helmet sits beside him, upside down, catching dew. "I'm praying for luck," he says solemnly. You nod. "Try asking for soap while you're at it. Today, by some cruel twist of hierarchy and fate, you've been ordered to escort Pietro to the priest's tent for instruction and spiritual clarity. You suspect it's more of a punishment than a blessing disguised as character building. The priest, Father Gianfranco, is technically your spiritual guide, but in practice he's also your unsolicited dentist, battlefield historian, and vocal critic of anyone who sleeps past sunrise. You find him standing barefoot in the mud, lecturing a patch of mushrooms. "These are not to be eaten," he says, loudly wagging a finger. "Temptation does not come only in bread and wine. Sometimes it wears a cap." He turns to you. "Ah, the wandering veteran, come to confess." You nod slowly. "Confess that I haven't seen a coin in 3 weeks." He chuckles, claps you on the shoulder, and immediately begins trying to hand you a small glass vial of something. This is a blend of camphor, rosemary, and ash, guaranteed to remove sin and toothache. You raise an eyebrow. At the same time, he shrugs. "It's where one goes, the other follows." Pietro bows deeply. "Father, I wanted to ask." "Say no more." Gianfranco interrupts. "You're here for guidance, and possibly to help organize the scrolls. They've become unruly." You glance inside the tent. It smells like beeswax, old paper, and something earthy. Scrolls are everywhere, stacked, rolled crushed under a broken reliquary box. A small statue of Saint Apollonia leans against a box of dried mint. The saint appears to be judging everyone. Pietro begins sorting nervously, while the priest corners you with a long speech about the moral ambiguity of fighting for coin. "Is it not noble to stand for a cause?" he demands, swirling a ladle of broth that is visibly growing something. You shrug. "I stand for not starving." He smiles. "A practical creed. But beware when one follows coin alone, the road becomes slippery." You glance at the soup again. So does your tent. He grins, and to your horror tries to baptize your helmet with a sprig of rosemary dipped in the broth. You pull it away just in time. Pietro meanwhile finds a scroll labeled "On the Proper Timing of Repentance" and begins reading it aloud. The priest hums in approval. Eventually, you manage to exit with only one dose of herbal oil forced into your pocket and a vague sense that your soul has been simultaneously cleansed and judged. Pietro follows you out holding a small cloth bundle. "He gave me a relic," he says proudly. You look at it. "That's a rock. It's a holy rock." "If you say so." The rest of the camp is already breaking down. You catch sight of Aldo trying to reattach the wheel of a supply cart, using what appears to be cheese and a prayer. The captain predictably is nowhere to be seen. You sit on a log and inspect your gear. The crossbow is behaving today, still sullen, but not openly hostile. You tighten the leather strap, oil the trigger, and chew the last of yesterday's bread. It's not soft. It never was. Pietro sits beside you, carefully polishing his helmet. "Do you think the priest is right," he asks, "that we're walking a slippery road?" You nod. "But it's not the road's fault." He seems to ponder this, then says, "I'm still glad I joined." You look at him. "Why?" He smiles faintly. "I've never seen so many stars at once." You follow his gaze. The morning sky is still fading, but yes, some stars linger. Just enough to remind you that the world is large, and you are walking across a very small part of it, with very cold feet. As you're preparing to march again, a messenger stumbles into camp. He's breathless, carrying a scroll sealed with the mark of a minor Florentine noble. He delivers it to the captain and waits nervously as the seal is broken. The captain reads it, frowns, grunts, then announces we're not going to the front lines after all. Murmurs ripple through the camp. We're being rerouted, he says, to provide presents near San Casciano. They've requested a display of force, Aldo mutters. So we're going to stand around and look scary. Exactly. You sigh. Pietro perks up. Do we get paid for that? The captain pretends not to hear him. Historians still argue whether mercenary companies were more useful for fighting for threatening to fight, or for just reminding everyone that they could fight if someone ever paid them. You begin marching again, feet dragging slightly. The sun climbs. Your pack creaks. The road, as the priest promised, is slippery, not with water, but with uncertainty. Pietro hums quietly. You sigh and take another step, because slippery or not, the road is the only thing that still wants you to keep walking. By late afternoon, tempers are beginning to simmer. This is not unusual. Mercenaries by nature are like stew. The longer you keep them on low heat, without coin or purpose, the more likely they are to boil over. Today, the spark is a spoon. To be fair, it's not just any spoon. It's a curved iron heirloom with a decorative notch, and according to its current owner, was gifted by an actual knight who once used it to stir both soup and justice. The spoon's previous owner, however, claims it was borrowed, not stolen, and also claims that the notch was already there when he found it. Thank you very much. You arrive on the scene just in time to see both men, Marco from Verona and Paolo from also Verona, which somehow makes it worse, standing 10 paces apart, in the center of camp, surrounded by a semi-interested crowd of fellow soldiers and one deeply skeptical chicken. They're holding spoons, not swords, not daggers, spoons, because apparently this is a matter of honor, and in their own words, a test of subtlety and control, which means they don't want to kill each other, just leave bruises in strategic places. You try to intervene. Can we not, you ask, hands on hips? We haven't eaten anything worth a spoon in a week. Marco raises his utensil. This is about more than soup. Is it, you ask? Paolo lunges, yelling something about lentils. The crowd cheers. You sigh. Even Pietro is watching, fascinated. Should we stop them? You shrug. Not unless they aim for the captain. The duel continues for exactly 27 seconds before Marco slips on an olive pit and lands flat on his back. Paolo immediately claims victory. Marco groans. The chicken clucks once and walks away in disgust. You help Marco to his feet and confiscate both spoons. They were symbolic, Paolo complains. So is your dignity, you reply. Pietro is still smiling. That was amazing. You sigh. You're easily entertained. He nods. I am 14. Later, during camp meal preparations, if one can call the act of boiling cabbage until it cries Uncle Emile, tension continues to simmer. Several men are whispering about the last city you were supposed to protect. Rumor says they've already switched allegiances. Others claim your captain has a cousin married to someone on the enemy's payroll. This kind of talk is dangerous, but also entirely routine. You tune it out and focus on trying to make your bread edible by holding it near the fire. It sizzles. That's not normal. You rotate it and hope it doesn't catch fire again. Pietro sits beside you, cleaning his sword with a cloth that used to be white and now looks like it lost a bet with a chimney. You think we'll see action soon, he asks. You nod slowly. Probably. Think we'll win. You glance around at the group of men currently arguing whether lentils count as a weapon. Define win. He considers that for a moment, then wisely returns to his polishing. After dinner, such as it is, you're called for sentry duty. Again, you climb the ridge above Camp Crossbow Slung and stare out into the landscape. Tuscany rolls out before you, like a frayed green blanket hills, distant towers, and the occasional vineyard clinging stubbornly to a slope. It's beautiful. It's quiet. It's suspiciously not full of war. You lean against a tree, eyes scanning the horizon. Pietro joins you breathless. They said I should watch with you. You sigh, but don't send him away. He sits on a rock, hugging his knees. You ever think about what you'd be doing if you weren't here? He asks. You nod. Every day. What would it be? You think for a moment. I'd be a cobbler. He blinks. You fix shoes. No, you say. I'd throw shoes at people who forget to pay me. He laughs so hard he almost slides off the rock. Then he gets quiet. I think I'd be a scribe, he says. Or maybe a musician. You glance sideways. Can you write? No. Play anything? No. You nod. Promising start. The sky darkens. Stars begin to appear. A chill seeps in, curling around your boots and creeping up your spine. You hear a distant howl, then another. Pietro stiffens. Wolves. You shake your head. They're not that close, probably just reminding us who really owns the hills. Should we tell the captain? He doesn't speak wolf. Silence returns. Pietro shivers slightly. You toss him part of your cloak. He thanks you quietly. Below the camp begins to sleep, one tent at a time, like candles winking out. You remain alert, sort of. At least you try. Then you hear it rustling from the grove. Not wind, not birds. You raise your hand. Pietro freezes. The sound fades, replaced by a faint squeak. A goat wanders into view, dragging a broken tether. You lower your weapon. Pietro exhales loudly. The goat stares at you, judgmental. You stare back. It sneezes. Pietro whispers, "It's probably a spy." You grin, only if it starts asking for your name. Eventually, your shift ends. You walk back to camp boots, crunching on dry grass sky overhead, painted with soft starlight. As you enter your tent, Aldo mumbles something about spoon duels and rolls over. Pietro crawls into his blanket and whispers, "Do you think tomorrow will be exciting?" You lie down, stare at the canvas above you and say, "I hope not." The moon is high fat and smug when it's your turn for the graveyard shift again. Of course it is. You're always assigned this one. Maybe because you're the only one who stays awake. Maybe because the others are afraid of being alone in the dark with their thoughts. Or maybe, and this is most likely because Aldo keeps bribing the sergeant with pickled onions to avoid it. You don't mind the quiet. Not really. After a day of loud marching, louder lies, and the sound of spoons being weaponized silence is a rare kind of mercy. Pietro insists on coming with you, again. He claims he's fine in the dark. He even brings a candle stub in a small brass cup and calls it his guardian light. You don't ask questions. You just hand him a stick for defense, for tripping over dramatically if we're ambushed. He nods solemnly. You patrol the perimeter of the camp, stepping carefully over sleeping bodies and stray chickens. The grass crunches underfoot, and the olive trees rustle overhead like they're whispering secrets. Somewhere off in the woods, something howls. Not a wolf this time, but a dog with performance issues. At the northern edge of the camp, there's a small rise where you can see everything, the campfires glowing like lazy fireflies, the mess tents slumped in on themselves like tired merchants, the supply carts huddled together as if scared they'll be asked to move. And then there's the sound. It's faint at first, like someone humming far off. A strange, reedy tune, no rhythm, no melody you recognize. It floats on the breeze, just soft enough to make you doubt it. Pietro hears it too. His head jerks toward the sound. Do you hear that? You nod slowly. Stay behind me. You edge toward the trees, careful to keep your feet quiet. The humming continues. It's not hostile, but it's not welcoming either. Just there. You peer into the shadows and see nothing. No figures, no campfires, no flickers of movement. Just wind and leaves and that distant haunting tune. You and Pietro stand there for several minutes listening. The sound fades, then returns, then stops altogether. Pietro shivers. That wasn't normal. No, you agree, but neither are we. He's quiet after that. You return to the edge of the camp. You don't report it. You've done this long enough to know that telling the captain about mysterious nighttime music only gets you reassigned to latrine duty or the back of the soup line. Still, you chalk a small mark on a stone near the tree line. Just a line and a curve. Your own code, your own record. Proof that something happened even if you can't explain it. Historians still argue whether mercenary camps were haunted by wandering spirits or simply the fevered imaginations of men too tired and underfed to trust their own senses. But you've seen too many things heard, too many sounds like that humming to chalk it all up to cheese-induced dreams. Pietro breaks the silence. Do you think it was a warning? Maybe. From who? From whoever's listening. He doesn't ask anything else after that. The rest of the shift is quiet. Too quiet. Even the usual rustling of the forest feels restrained, like something is holding its breath. When dawn finally begins to smear across the hills in pale, uncertain gold, you let Pietro go back to camp first. He's pale and tired, but proud that he didn't fall asleep. You hand him a stale date from your pouch as a reward. He accepts it like it's a holy relic. You remain for one more round of the perimeter. The wind is picking up. You smell olives dew and something faintly sweet lavender maybe, or a memory. Near the supply carts, something glints in the grass. You bend down. It's a coin, or what should be a coin. It's light, too light, and stamped with no markings. Just a circle, plain, blank. You frown. A joke, a message, a threat. You pocket it, just in case. When you finally return to your bedroll, Aldo is using half of it as a pillow. You shove him gently. He grunts and rolls over. Pietro is already curled up, mumbling something about the music, his candle stub still glowing faintly beside him. You lie down. Stare at the canvas. Try to forget the tune. It lingers anyway, like all the good ones do. It is once again payday. Allegedly, you are gathered with the rest of the company in a vaguely straight line outside the captain's tent, which smells faintly of wine regret and something pickled. No one dares say it, but everyone is thinking it. Please, for once, let there be actual money. Not promissory notes, not favors owed, not sacks of chestnuts. Money. The captain emerges, rubbing his eyes, like someone deeply inconvenienced by having to lead. He's wearing one boot, one slipper, and a belt that belongs to the quartermaster. His feathered hat is on sideways, which either means he's had a bad night or a very good one. He claps his hands. My brothers, he says, grinning far too widely today, is a day of great fortune. A murmur goes through the line. Pietro, standing to your left, perks up like a spaniel. The captain continues. We have completed a phase of our duty, and the client has issued a promise of payment. A collective groan, which will arrive. He adds quickly very soon. You sigh. Aldo mutters, define soon. The captain ignores this and gestures to a small hunched man carrying a basket. Inside the basket are a few coins, silver, glinting like they might be real. He begins handing them out one at a time, 1 coin per man, then pauses. For now, he says. Aldo receives his and bites it. It's real, he says, stunned. You get yours. It's slightly warm, like it was just taken out of someone's armpit. Pietro beams. We're getting paid. You eye the coin. It's silver, but very light, almost too light. You test it in your fingers. Solid, sort of. You suspect it might be clipped, shaved down around the edges, made thinner. It's legal, technically, but not exactly a gesture of generosity. Pietro is already planning what to do with his. I could buy better gloves, or a pouch, or maybe a scarf, something blue. You nod. Good plan. You, on the other hand, tuck yours deep into your boot, where it won't jingle, because 1 coin means nothing. It means we remembered you're alive, not we value your work. Still, it's more than last week, so you take it. Later that morning, during maintenance drills, also known as stand in a field, until your armor fuses with your back, you overhear the quartermaster muttering about delays and mule troubles. He's holding a list of names and rubbing his temple like it owes him money. Trouble, you ask? He looks up, startled. Nothing. Just that the rest of the payment is being processed. You raise an eyebrow. Is it coming by sea? He winces. Pietro jogs over helmets and backward. Are we marching today? The quartermaster sighs. Eventually. So you wait. You sharpen your knife. You patch your tunic. You take a turn rotating the water barrels to prevent moss. Aldo tries to invent a game involving 2 sticks a beetle and shouting. It ends in tears, mostly from the beetle. As midday passes, someone starts a rumor that the money's been sent to the wrong mercenary company. Someone else claims it was liberated by bandits on the road. A third says the mule carrying it ran away and became a priest. None of it matters. You still have just 1 coin. Historians still argue whether mercenaries were ever paid on time or if the entire profession was just a long, dusty gamble punctuated by soup and broken promises. The evidence leans heavily toward the latter. You wander near the supply carts and see the same chicken again, the red-ribboned one. She's pecking at a boot that no one claims. Pietro watches her fascinated. Do you think she's magical? You glance at the ribbon. She's suspicious at the very least. The chicken pauses, looks directly at you, then lays an egg on top of your crossbow. You stare at it. It's warm, slightly luminous. You're afraid to touch it. Pietro whispers, That's definitely magical. The chicken clucks once and walks away. You take the egg, wrap it in cloth, and decide not to mention it to anyone. Back at your tent, you find that someone's been through your things. Nothing stolen, just disturbed. Your satchel is slightly open. Your bread has been moved. And your 1 silver coin still there, which somehow makes you trust everything less. You tuck the coin deeper into your gear and draw a chalk mark near your bedroll, a simple loop with a bar. It means someone's watching. Aldo returns with bruised shins and no explanation. Pietro hums a song he insists he heard in a dream. You lie down, stare at the tent ceiling, and wonder why getting paid never feels like winning. You still have your weapons. You still have your hands. You still have your one coin. But you don't feel richer, just slightly less forgotten. And that's the best you'll get. For now, you wake up to pigeons, not the peaceful kind that coo gently in church towers. No, these are war pigeons, the feathered messengers of military bureaucracy, flapping, squawking, and dropping scrolls with all the grace of a collapsing cabbage cart. One lands on Pietro. He yelps, flails, and somehow manages to tangle himself in his own cloak. You sit up and grab the scroll that's just landed near your foot. The bird that delivered it is glaring at you like it expects a tip. You give it a breadcrumb. It spits it out. You unroll the parchment. It's written in rough Latin, clearly rushed, and smells faintly of lavender and disappointment. Orders from Florence, bearing a broken wax seal and 3 contradictory signatures. The gist? You're to remain in your current location for now and maintain readiness. Also remain visible, avoid looting, and impress the locals. Aldo reads over your shoulder and snorts. Impress them with what our fashion sense. He gestures at his tunic, which is 2 shades of brown, one of which might be mud or soup. Hard to say. Meanwhile, Pietro is trying to depigeon himself. The bird is still perched on his helmet, refusing to move. It likes me, he says, or it thinks you're a perch, you reply. Maybe I'm both. You try to get the message to the captain, but he's currently deep in his tent, arguing with a map and something called logistics. The quartermaster waves you away with an expression that says, if it's not on fire, it's not urgent. So you and Pietro are assigned to wait for it laundry duty. Yes, in a mercenary company full of swordsman scouts and siege engineers, you are now the proud guardian of a drying line and a pile of everyone's least washable undergarments. You drag the wash tub to the creek. It's cold. Of course it's cold. The soap is mostly ashes and goat fat, and you're pretty sure it's still haunted by whatever it last cleaned. Pietro, to his credit, tries to be helpful. He sings while scrubbing a cheerful tune that might be a hymn or possibly a cheese recipe in rhyme. You scrub, silently thinking about your choices. A proud military life, tales of glory, honor in service, and now socks. You lift a particularly questionable garment with a stick and hold it up. Pietro eyes it. Do we burn it? Eventually you say, but we have to pretend we tried. While hanging clothes to dry on a line strung between 2 olive trees, you spot something odd, a pigeon with a red ribbon tied around its foot. Not the usual military tag, something more delicate. Handmade. It lands on the line, stares at you, then drops a small scrap of folded paper and flies off. You unfold it. It reads, "We see your camp. Watch the West Road. Tell no one." No signature, no seal, just that. You glance at Pietro. He's humming blissfully, unaware, rinsing a tunic that probably belonged to someone who no longer needs it. You tuck the note into your boot. Pietro asks, "What was that?" "Laundry tax invoice, you lie." He nods because that makes as much sense as anything else today. When you return to camp with the slightly cleaner laundry, the captain is still busy. The cook is burning something again, and the Genoese twins are arguing over whether rosemary counts as a weapon. No one notices the note. No one asks about the red-ribboned pigeon. That night, you post yourself on the West Road. Nothing happens, but that's not comforting. It's intentional. You sit in the grass listening to the wind move through the olive leaves. Pietro joins you quietly. He doesn't ask this time, just sits close enough to share the silence. Eventually he says, "Do you think someone's spying on us?" You glance at him. "Why would you say that?" "I don't know. Just feels like it." You nod slowly. "You're not wrong." He doesn't press. Instead, he points at the stars. "I think that one's Mars. That's a bat." "Oh." A moment passes. He adds, "It's still impressive." You both watch the bat circle and vanish. You stay on the road until dawn. Nothing comes. But the note said, "Watch not intervene." So you do, and you wait, because sometimes that's all you're meant to do. By now, you've learned to recognize the signs of a military maneuver that will absolutely amount to nothing. First, there's the sudden burst of energy around campmen, adjusting armor that hasn't been polished in weeks, swords being sharpened with dramatic flair, and an unusual number of battle yells being tested out in the open field. Then come the conflicting rumors. We're moving on Pisa. We're defending Lucca. We're escorting a bishop's cousin to a sausage fair. This morning, the rumor is siege formation practice. Not a siege, just the concept of one. You're to march to the edge of a local town, stand threateningly, and then return to camp without doing anything. Your captain calls it a flex. The locals call it Tuesday. You strap on your gear anyway. Crossbow, knife, that one shoulder guard that doesn't quite fit, but keeps you from getting sunburnt in a very specific rectangle. Pietro joins you with his helmet on backward. Again, "I'm ready," he announces. "For what you ask." "I don't know yet," he admits brightly. You march toward the town in full view of its walls, not close enough to provoke missiles, but close enough that a myopic lookout might squint and say yes that appears to be 20 men and one goat forming a line. Pietro leans over mid-march. "What's the plan?" To be seen, you reply. "Seen doing what?" You shrug. "Not dying, preferably." The line halts in a field dotted with buttercups. There's no cover, no banners raised, just your company standing awkwardly under a sky full of disinterested clouds. The captain bellows something about discipline and making a statement. Aldo mutters, "The only statement I'm making is a new blister." You stand still for an hour. Flies circle your ears. Sweat slides down your back. Your coin, still hidden in your boot, rubs against your ankle like an itch you can't pay off. Then a rider appears, not one of yours, clad in Florence's colors, with a scroll too large for one man to carry, without obvious dramatic intent. He stops just far enough from your company to suggest disdain but not outright hostility. Hands the scroll to your captain, rides off. The captain reads it, squints, then laughs, loudly. This, he announces, waving the scroll like a tavern receipt, is a message from our esteemed employers. It says, "Thank you for your loyalty. Please do not approach the city further, and you will be paid in due time." The men groan in collective emotional harmony. Aldo says, "I don't speak much Latin, but I'm pretty sure that translates to go away peasants." Your captain rolls the scroll and grins. "We've done our duty." Pietro whispers, "What was the point of this?" You say that is the point. You march back less enthusiastically than before. At camp, the mood is low. A few men start repacking, assuming that if this wasn't a battle, the next one must be. Someone else suggests a mutiny. It's always the same man. He says it with the same tone one uses to suggest a walk after dinner. The priest is seen sprinkling something around the tents. He says it's for blessing. You're pretty sure it's just stale salt. You sit on a log and try to take off your left boot. It fights you. You win eventually, but not without injury. Pietro plops beside you and pulls a burr from his cloak. Why do they keep asking us to march in circles, he asks. You pick at your bread. Because if we stand still too long, we realize we haven't been paid. He leans back. Do you think we're making a difference? You glance around the camp. Aldo is arguing with a goose. The quartermaster is trading one rusty pot for another slightly rustier pot. The captain is practicing his speech for tomorrow in front of a mirror made from a polished shield. You sigh. Not in the way we thought. Pietro picks at a loose thread on his tunic. But maybe someone in that town saw us. Probably. And maybe they thought, now we're safe. You smirk. They probably thought, lock the cellars. That night dinner is lentils again. You pretend to like them. Pietro pretends he can chew them. You both fail. Someone tries to sing. The priest joins in. The song dies quietly and is not mourned. You lie on your blanket and stare at the stars. No dragons, no enemy armies, no great battles. Just the steady hum of men trying to look busy enough to be worth paying. You pull out the red ribbon pigeon note again. Still no new message, but the silence feels like a whisper waiting to form. So you keep listening, because sometimes the thing you're waiting for isn't the coin. It's the moment before something changes. The morning begins with the smell of garlic. This is not unpleasant. It's just surprising, because nothing in the camp smells like garlic unless someone is hiding it, hoarding it, or smuggling it in under the guise of spiritual protection. You sit up slowly and discover a small crumpled letter tucked into your satchel, not tied with a ribbon, not sealed with wax, just folded and stuffed like it had been tossed in by someone in a hurry or someone trying not to be caught. It's from your cousin, the baker in Pisa. You haven't heard from him in months. The letter is short-scrawled in that spidery half-cursive that only he and possibly one goose on earth can read. It starts with the usual pleasantries, hopes you haven't died, hopes you're not eating moss, hopes you remember his birthday. Then comes the interesting part. He writes, rumor says your company was seen south of Florence, not raiding, just watching. People notice things like that. More importantly, I hear certain lords are withholding coin. They say it's tactical, but I say it's insulting. Just a whisper, cousin. Watch your commander's books, if he's still keeping them. Also enclosed a scrap of cloth soaked in garlic oil for the feet, or vampires, or both. You sniff the cloth. It's strong enough to make your eyes water. You tuck it away, heart beating just a little faster. It's not the first time your cousin's warnings have meant something. Last time, it was about a crooked arms dealer who tried to pay your unit in counterfeit florins. Aldo still wears one as a button. You spend the morning doing the sort of camp chores that aren't quite tasks, but also aren't optional moving crates of stale biscuits, rotating spears, so they don't warp, listening to Pietro try to tune a string instrument he definitely stole from someone's baggage. Around midday, you're called to the quartermaster's tent. Not for punishment, not for payment, for pigeons. He's standing there with a stack of incoming messages, each tied to the leg of a very irritated bird. These came for the captain, he says, but he's drunk in his tent and thinks all messages are personally insulting now. So your turn. You glance over the scrolls. Some are simple orders, others are pure nonsense. One appears to be a love letter meant for someone named Claudia and includes an aggressively romantic drawing of a wheel of cheese. Then there's one sealed with the same sigil as the blank coin from a few days ago, just a plain circle. You don't open it. You just stare. The quartermaster shrugs. You gonna read that one? Not yet. You take it anyway. You spend the next hour sitting by the olive grove, watching shadows stretch across the stones while pretending to clean your gear. You study the seal again. There's no mark of Florence Pisa Luca, none of the usual city-states. It's as anonymous as silence. You eventually crack the wax. Inside is a folded parchment with one sentence. You are not where you are supposed to be. No signature, no date. You look up at the trees, half expecting someone to step out and nod like it's all part of a secret drama you weren't invited to. But nothing moves. Pietro joins you, flops onto the grass, and sighs. Do you ever feel like we're just circling something, he asks. Every day. He pulls a small rock from his pouch. Painted, blue. Found this near the laundry line. It was warm. You frown. Pietro tosses it in the air and catches it. Do you think we're cursed? You don't answer, because honestly, you're not sure you're not. That night, you're back on perimeter duty. Again. You volunteer this time, partially to avoid the stew, mostly because the grove has been too quiet, and silence feels heavier than shouting. You stand by the old fence, crossbow-cradled eyes, scanning the hills, and then you hear it, that humming again, soft, wandering, unafraid. You don't call out, you just listen. The tune fades, then returns. This time it has words, not ones you understand, but the syllables feel ancient, slow, like dust rolling downhill. Pietro is there again, sitting nearby, eyes wide. He whispers, "Should we wake the captain?" No, but no. You move closer to the sound step by cautious step through low grass and past crickets that fall silent as you pass. And then at the edge of the grove, you see it. A figure, standing, cloaked, not armed, not hiding, just there. You freeze. The figure doesn't move. Then it turns and is gone. No sound, no rustle, just absence. You step forward, find nothing except a single olive branch, carved with a circle. You kneel, touch it. It's warm. Behind you, Pietro speaks very softly. "I don't think we're meant to stay here." You nod, but you stay anyway, because someone has to watch. And tonight, it's your turn. The next morning, the camp wakes up confused, which is saying something considering confusion is the usual baseline. It starts with the weather. The sky is a strange pewter gray, but not overcast in the usual way. The air is oddly still, no breeze, no bird calls, just the soft collective snoring of 50 unpaid men and the occasional complaint from someone dreaming of soup. Then there's the banner. Sometime in the night, the company's standard, nothing fancy, just a red cross on a pale field, was taken down and replaced with a boot, just one, suspended from the top of the pole, flapping gently. You are called in as part of the unofficial investigation, mostly because you're one of the few people awake before sunrise, and you have a face that says, "I won't ask dumb questions yet." The captain is seething. Who dares replace our banner with footwear, he demands. Aldo raises a hand. Technically, a boot can symbolize persistence, or a warning, or someone had cold feet, you mutter. No one laughs. Pietro squints at the boot. Is that your boot? You blink. It is your boot, or at least the one you lost in the mud 2 weeks ago and gave up on recovering. How did it get up there? Silence. You pull it down. It's dry. Mud flaked off. Smells faintly of thyme and soap. The captain insists the incident be recorded in the day log as enemy psychological interference. The scribe writes this down with a raised eyebrow and a shrug. Later, while sorting spears near the quartermaster's cart, you find something else. Tucked beneath a broken crate of arrowheads is a folded scrap of cloth, unmarked, just soft linen tied in a simple knot. You untie it. Inside is another coin, this one not blank, stamped with a sunburst. No ruler's face, no denomination, no clue where it came from. You rub it between your fingers. Pietro wanders over and peers at it. Is that new? Too new. You pocket it. He frowns. You've been finding a lot of strange things lately. Strange finds me, you reply. The next few hours are spent in what the captain now refers to as mobile rest posture, which is code for stand around and look like you might be marching soon. It's exhausting. Pietro takes to sketching symbols in the dirt with his dagger. You recognize a few your own chalk codes for unknown observer suspect animal behavior, and don't eat this again. He's been watching you, learning. Eventually, the captain calls an assembly. We're moving north, he declares to the hill fort at Castello del More. This raises eyebrows. That fort hasn't been used in years. It's rumored to be haunted. Strategic visibility, he says, and possibly shelter from weather and highwaymen. You pack quickly, but the unease lingers. Marching out of the olive grove feels like leaving something unfinished. The air is heavier. The birds don't follow. Even the chicken seems reluctant to leave. The trek is short but uphill. Of course it is. Everything worth regretting is uphill. The fort comes into view by late afternoon. It's mostly ruined 2 towers, 1 stable, and a half-fallen chapel. The walls are intact enough to give the illusion of safety, but they creak when the wind hits them wrong. Inside the courtyard is overgrown with weeds. The well is dry, and something has clearly been nesting in the granary. Something large. You set up camp anyway. That evening, as you walk the perimeter, you find new marks on the stones near the broken fountain. Circles, plain, careful, deliberate, drawn with coal or ash. You crouch, trace one with your finger. It's recent. Someone's been here, or still is. You chalk a mark beside it, spiral with a notch. Your personal code for unknown hand, unknown message. Back at camp, the men try to joke. Pietro joins a dice game and loses quickly. Aldo discovers a scorpion under his blanket and declares it a desert prophet. No one argues. The captain is unusually quiet. You suspect he's waiting for something, a message, an excuse to retreat. You retreat to the chapel, what's left of it. Inside, there's a single stone bench and remnants of a wooden altar. Pietro follows silently. He sits on the bench, rubbing his eyes. I thought war would be more Straightforward, he says. You chuckle. Straight lines make easy targets. He sighs. Do you think we'll ever fight? You pause. We've been fighting the whole time. He tilts his head, fighting boredom, uncertainty, each other. He smiles faintly. And birds. You nod. Especially birds. You hand him the second coin, the one with the sunburst. Here. He stares. Is it real? It's yours now. Just in case. In case of what? In case you need to remember that even strange things have meaning. He nods slowly. You sit in silence as the wind rises. The roof creaks. Far off a bell rings. No tower nearby. No church. Just the sound. Soft. Like a warning. Or a welcome. You both look at each other. Then at the stars. One glows brighter than the rest. You don't know why. But you don't stop watching. The next morning the air tastes like stone. You've had worse. You once breathed in a dust storm near Orvieto that turned your nose into a pipe organ for 3 days. And let's not even talk about the time you camped near the tannery. But this is a different kind of dryness. The kind that seeps into your joints and convinces your boots they're made of wood. You sit up on your bedroll in the ruined fort's courtyard and immediately regret it. Your back cracks. Your knee protests. Pietro is already awake, whispering something to the coin you gave him the night before. You watch him carefully. Are you talking to it? He shrugs. It helps me think. Did it talk back? No. Then you're doing better than most commanders I've served under. Breakfast is a chunk of hard cheese and a handful of roasted chickpeas. Aldo insists came from a traveling merchant who definitely didn't rob someone else to get them. You believe him? Mostly. They crunch like gravel, but taste like honesty mildly burnt, questionably stored but well meant. While you chew, the captain assembles the company in the overgrown courtyard. He's wearing clean gloves. This is always a bad sign. We have new orders, he announces, waving a scroll with a ribbon so red it could be blood or beet juice. We are to hold this location, provide a visible presence, offer deterrence, maintain perimeter. Impress stability upon the region. He says all of this with a straight face. Aldo whispers. So basically, we're staying here and looking mildly threatening. You nod, with extra flourishes. The men groan. Pietro looks delighted. I like it here, he says. It's mysterious. It is that. You spend the next few hours pretending to patrol the perimeter. In reality, you're trying to identify who keeps leaving small marks near your bedroll. Last night, it was a smoothed pebble with a chalk ring drawn on it. The night before, a feather wrapped in twine. Each time, no witnesses, no explanation. You suspect the chicken, or ghosts, possibly both. You walk the broken wall and peer into the countryside. From up here, you can see for miles rolling fields, scattered farmhouses, the occasional glint of a river in the distance, and movement, not close, but deliberate. 2 riders, just shapes, silhouettes at the edge of the visible world, not charging, not fleeing, just there. You keep your eyes on them, but they disappear behind a ridge. You note the direction in your ledger, sketch the shapes, date it. Pietro approaches with a question on his face before he even speaks. What's out there, he asks. People who know more than we do. Do we follow? Not unless they invite us. You both descend from the wall. Back at camp, Father Gianfranco is performing a blessing of the latrine trench. You try not to ask. You succeed. The men are listless today. No drills, no cooking rotation, just maintenance, sharpening speculation, and mild conspiracy. Aldo is sure the fort is haunted. He claims he heard chanting last night. Pietro says he saw a light moving between the towers. You just found a small pile of rosemary under your pillow. You eat lunch on the chapel steps, dried figs, and something Aldo insists is not jerky, but won't elaborate. As you chew, you glance into the chapel's interior. The stone bench from yesterday has been cleaned, not by you. Someone brushed the dust away. Someone smoothed the altar and left a symbol carved into the stone, a circle, again. This one with a line through it like an eye half shut. You say nothing, but Pietro notices your gaze. What does it mean? I don't know. Should we tell the captain? Definitely not. That night, you walk the inner courtyard alone. Not on shift, not ordered, just drawn. The moonlight spills across the broken cobblestones, making everything silver and strange. You pause near the well. It's dry, or was. Now you hear dripping. You lower a pebble. Count 1, 2, blink. It landed. You're no mathematician, but that's new. You pull back. Let the mystery settle. As you return to your bedroll, you find something tucked into your satchel. A plum. Fresh. Soft. Not from here. You hold it. Turn it in your hand. Then take a bite. It's sweet. Too sweet for this place. Pietro stirs nearby, half asleep. Did we win something? He murmurs. You lie back. Stare at the stars. I don't think so, you say. But we haven't lost yet. He drifts off. You hold the rest of the plum in your hand and wonder who left it and why they picked you. Rain, not a storm. Not a proper downpour with thunder and drama. Just the kind of rain that soaks through your cloak slowly and insults you one drop at a time. Persistent, personal, intimate in a way only bad weather can be. You wake with your blanket damp, your boots wet on the inside again, and your dignity half drowned under a shallow puddle that formed in your helmet. Pietro is trying to make a tent out of his cloak and a bent fork. He calls it experimental engineering. You call it one breeze away from becoming a cape. The fort looks worse in the rain. Stones glisten with moss. The old tower leaks like a colander, and the chicken, yes. That same red-ribboned mystery is sitting inside the chapel like she owns the place, watching everyone with solemn poultry judgment. You're assigned to roof patrol, which is laughable since the fort technically has no roof, just increasingly symbolic collections of beams. You trudge through ankle-deep muck around the broken stables, checking for signs of movement. Not enemy movement, just movement. Anything to prove that your presence here has a point beyond collecting moisture and excuses. You pause near the well again, still dripping. You don't lower another pebble. Instead, you find something new. On the lip of the well, a tiny wax seal, pale green, pressed into the mud shaped like a leaf. No scroll, no message, just the seal. You pocket it. Back in the courtyard, Aldo is arguing with a bird. Not the chicken, a crow. I know what you are, he hisses. I've read things. The crow squawks once and flies away. He turns to you. That was definitely a spy. You sigh. At least spies don't steal rations. They do, he insists. Emotionally? Meanwhile, Pietro is trying to build a fire with wood that's so wet it might be evolving into a different species. He's blowing on it, gently muttering encouragement. I believe in you, he whispers to the kindling. You sit beside him, dripping. Any news, he asks. You shrug. Just the usual weird signs, secret seals and birds with attitude. Same as yesterday, more or less. Better than arrows. You both sit in soggy silence. Father Gianfranco emerges from the chapel robes, clinging to him like moldy curtains. He's carrying a bowl of water. For blessings, he says. You glance at the sky. Pretty sure that's handled. He insists on flicking droplets at your boots anyway. It's about intent. Intent is a theme today. The captain, who by some miracle still owns a dry feathered hat, calls an operational meeting. It involves 20 minutes of rambling about holding our strategic position and sending a message of readiness. Most of it is lost to the wind and the squelch of mud under everyone's boots. The message everyone actually hears is we're stuck here longer. After the meeting, you retreat to the tower, what's left of it. The top is partially collapsed, but it offers a view. You climb the spiral, careful with each slippery stone. At the top you see it, a flicker, just a light far to the east, in a valley where there shouldn't be one. No road leads there, no village, just ruins. Pietro appears beside you, soaked and curious. What is it? Light, you say. He squints. Could be a fire? Could be. Could be someone trying to get our attention. You nod. Should we tell the captain? No. You say that a lot. Because I mean it a lot. That night, the rain eases just enough to allow sleep. But you dream. You dream of the well overflowing, of the plum returning to your satchel whole again, of a coin in your mouth and tasting like copper and memory, and a voice low and not entirely human whispering, "You are not lost. You are marked. You wake before dawn. The fire is still out." Pietro is curled into a damp burrito of blankets. The chicken is asleep on the altar, and near your boots, just sitting there, is a folded scrap of linen. Inside it, a third coin, not blank, not sunburst. This one has a tree, roots tangled, branches bare, no explanation, no note, just the coin. You sit with it in your hand and wait for the light again. The rain finally stops, not with ceremony, but with a bored kind of surrender, as if the clouds simply got tired of mocking you. Sunlight filters through the clouds in hesitant patches, casting pale gold onto puddles, spears, and the backs of still sleeping mercenaries. Your blanket smells like stew and wet wool, and one of your socks has escaped. You find it wrapped around the base of a spear that's somehow become part of a drying rack for mystery meat. You do not ask questions. Pietro greets the morning by proudly presenting you with a loaf of bread. "I found it," he announces. You eye the bread. Define found. It was behind a barrel. Unclaimed. Anything else back there? A rat. But I think he was just keeping it warm. You stare at him. He grins. You take the bread. To your mild surprise, it's not bad. A little dry, but edible. You break it in half and share it. As you chew, you think about the third coin. The tree. Roots. Bare branches. No leaves. Aldo sits beside you, chewing dried apricots with the intensity of a man imagining they are roast duck. You ever see a coin with a tree on it? You ask. He thinks. Once, a noble from Umbria said it was old pre-Florentine mint, used for loyalty tokens. Loyalty to what? Aldo shrugs. Not clear. Something that doesn't exist anymore. You nod and slide the coin into your pouch alongside the blank one and the sunburst. 3 coins. 3 symbols. You're starting to wonder if someone's sending you a message or playing a very patient prank. Later, you're put on rotation to guard the southern wall, a wall so broken that even the chickens use it as a shortcut. You stand there anyway, watching fields roll into the horizon, watching the trees for movement. And you see it, the light again, east, in that same hidden valley. But it's closer now, not firelight, not a torch, something steady, faint, gold tinted, like sunrise caught in glass. You squint. It flickers once, then vanishes. You turn to call for Pietro, but he's already beside you, panting from running up the hill. You saw it too, he says, eyes wide. You nod. What do? We tell no one. He doesn't argue this time. That evening, you pretend to be on firewood duty and wander east toward the source of the light. Pietro follows without being told. He's learned the rhythm of these quiet decisions. The woods grow denser. Olive trees give way to cypress. The trail, if you can call it that, is barely there. You pass an old milestone, cracked and mossy. Pietro pauses to examine it. Look, he says, pointing. A circle carved into the stone. Inside it, a smaller symbol, a tree, the same one from the coin. You trace it with your finger. It's older than the road, Pietro says quietly. You both continue slower, now more cautious. Eventually, you reach a clearing. Stone columns rise from the earth like broken fingers. The remains of a villa, a shrine, a place no longer remembered. In the center is a pedestal, and on the pedestal a box, small, wooden, sealed with wax. No lock, just a ribbon. Red. Pietro glances at you. Is this ours? Not yet. You approach. Lift the box. It's heavier than it looks. You carry it back to camp in silence. In your tent, you examine it under lamplight. The seal is stamped with the same tree symbol. The ribbon is frayed but intact. You cut it. Inside cloth, folded carefully and nestled within parchments. 5 sheets, handwritten. Not military orders, not religious text, not even a warning. They're journal entries. Each begins with the same line, to the one who waits. You skim the first. It speaks of watching from a distance, of a camp that arrived and didn't leave, of a name that's been forgotten, but a pattern that keeps repeating. The second mentions coins, 3 symbols, 3 tests. You glance at your pouch. This is not coincidence. Pietro watches you read. What does it say? It says, we're part of something. Something good. You fold the paper. That's not clear yet. You hide the pages. Wrap the box again. Slide it beneath your bedroll. The moon is high when you finally sleep. And in your dream, the tree from the coin stands before you, its roots tangled in ruins, its branches full of watching birds. One drops a ribbon. You wake with the taste of salt in your mouth, and a 4th coin in your hand. This one a gate, half open. You don't tell anyone about the 4th coin. Not yet. Not Aldo, who is currently making a soup from boiled onions, pickled walnuts, and what he insists is definitely not a rock. Not Father Gianfranco, who has taken to wandering the ruined fort, muttering Latin phrases with increasing confidence and decreasing accuracy. And not Pietro, who now spends more time sketching trees in the dirt than he does cleaning his armor. You keep the gate coin hidden in the lining of your cloak. It's heavier than the others, feels colder, and unlike the others, it has a sound. Not audible, not really, but when you touch it, there's a kind of hum behind your teeth. like something waiting to be knocked loose. You pass the day in ordinary misery. The men are restless, half want to march, half want to mutiny. The captain, who has retreated almost entirely into his tent, now gives orders through a flap as if speaking to peasants from a velvet confession box. We remain, he tells you, when you're summoned for counsel. Why, you ask? Visibility. To who? To those watching. You stare, watching from where? He waves vaguely. The usual places. You leave before you say something he'll make you dig a trench for. Outside, Pietro finds you sitting on the chapel steps again, flipping the sunburst coin between your fingers, like it'll eventually answer your questions. He sits beside you, chewing something sticky. Do you ever think about just walking away? He asks. You nod. Every hour. And yet here we are. You hand him the journal entries from the box. You've copied them into your own notes, but he deserves to see them. He reads slowly. When he finishes, he doesn't speak right away. Then he says, "The one who waits. Do you think it's you?" You shake your head. I think it's all of us. That night, your shift is uneventful until the last hour. You hear it first, the faintest chime like wind brushing across glass. You look to the ridge, and there it is, the light, closer now, steadier. You don't wake the others. You don't call for backup. You just walk quiet, careful, until you're near the wall. And then you see him, a man standing just beyond the broken outer gate. Tall, cloaked, still. You raise your crossbow. He doesn't flinch. He lifts a hand, palm forward. In it a coin, a fifth coin. He sets it down on a flat stone and walks away. You rush forward, but by the time you reach the stone, he's gone, vanished behind the tree line like mist into shadow. The coin is real, heavy, embossed with a wheel, 8 spokes, worn edges. Back at your tent, you line them up. Blank. Sunburst, tree, gate, wheel. Pietro stirs. This isn't random. No, you agree. It's a message. What does it mean? I don't know, but I think we're about to find out. That dawn, the captain gathers everyone for a sudden departure. We ride east, he announces. Why, someone asks. Orders. From who? He holds up a scroll unsealed. Just a wax impression. A wheel. You meet Pietro's eyes. No one else notices. The men pack quickly. Relief mixes with suspicion. No one likes staying still too long. But no one trusts this movement either. The enemy hasn't appeared. The employers have stopped writing. And yet now, suddenly, they move. As you mount the hill on the eastern path, you look back one last time at the ruined fort. The chicken watches you from the chapel door. She nods. You nod back. It's the most honest moment you've had in weeks. You turn and follow the captain east, toward whatever waits, toward whoever's been watching, toward the 6th coin. You travel east, under a sky the color of an old kettle, cloudy dented, but still managing to hold itself together. The path winds through sparse woods and fields that don't seem to belong to anyone, though you pass the occasional shepherd who watches your company pass with the same expression you'd give to a cow chewing on your laundry suspicion resignation and maybe a touch of judgment. No one sings, not even Pietro. The usual background hum of half-hearted marching songs and terrible rhyming jokes has given way to quiet. Not fear, not exactly, more like expectation. The captain hasn't said a word since sunrise. He rides ahead, eyes fixed on the road scroll tucked into his belt like it might bite him. You asked to see it once. He pretended not to hear you. That's fine. You're getting used to being ignored by people who have no idea what's happening. Around midday, you pause for water at a stream so clear it feels like a trick. The kind of water that looks perfect, just long enough to lull you into trusting it before it gives you 6 days of regret. You drink anyway, because what's the worst that could happen? Pietro washes his hands in the stream, then sits beside you. I had a dream last night, he says. You nod. You and everyone else. No, this one was different. I was in a field, empty, but the sky was full of coins, hundreds of them, spinning. You glance at him. What kind of coins? He shrugs. Just like yours? The tree, the gate, and the one with the wheel. But there was another. One I haven't seen before. He pulls out a scrap of parchment and draws a quick sketch. A tower, cracked at the top. You nod slowly. You've never seen it either, but you recognize it. You move on after lunch, following the road that feels less and less like a road, and more like an idea someone once had about what a road could be. It's narrow, overgrown, and curved just enough that you never see what's ahead until you're already stepping into it. By late afternoon, you reach a crossroads, not marked, not paved, just 2 paths, one leading north toward hills, the other deeper into the woods. The captain stops, pulls out the scroll, reads it again. He turns toward the woods. We follow the path of the wheel, he says, like that explains anything. The men groan, but no one argues. You walk single file into a forest that smells like memory earth and sap and something almost metallic beneath it all. The sun fades quickly under the canopy, and shadows stretch across the path in strange ways. You catch glimpses of movement in your peripheral vision, but every time you turn, there's nothing there. At one point, Aldo says he saw a boy in the trees, just watching. No one else saw him. You believe him anyway. Camp that night is haphazard tense. No fire, no music, just bread-dried peas and glances that last too long. You sit beside Pietro, inspecting the coins again. Blank, sunburst, tree, gate, wheel. They don't fit together. Not exactly. But they belong. Somehow. He pulls out a pebble and presses it against the gate coin. It looks like it could go here, he says. You take the pebble. It's smooth, pale, engraved faintly with a tower. You stare. Where did you get this? I found it a few days ago, behind the laundry tent. Thought it was just a carving. You hold it up. The same shape from his dream. The same one from the sketches. In the journal you found. The 6th coin, maybe. Or a marker of where it should be. A coin without a coin. A symbol waiting for its shape. That night you can't sleep. You lie on your back listening to the wind shift through trees that never stop creaking. And then you hear it. The humming again. Closer now. Not just melody words. Low. Ancient. You sit up. Pietro is awake too. His eyes wide. It's here, he whispers. You rise slowly. Weapons sheathed. This isn't a fight. You follow the sound past the edge of the camp, past the sentry who's too asleep to notice you slipping by, into the trees, where moonlight breaks through the leaves like a secret being spilled one drop at a time. And in a clearing, the man, again, same cloak, same stillness, but this time he's not alone. Beside him, a figure in white, hooded, taller. Hands clasped. Neither speaks, but the humming stops. The silence is louder. Then between them, they lower a small leather pouch onto a stump. You don't move. You wait. They vanish, not like smoke, like a breath held too long, gone. You step forward, open the pouch. Inside the sixth coin, the tower, broken at the top, scorched around the edge. You stare at it, breath caught in your throat. And for a moment, just one, everything feels very still. Not peaceful, not calm, just final. You pocket the coin and walk back to camp, not because you understand, but because something has started, and now it's too late to pretend otherwise. You wake up with mud in your ear and your blanket clinging to you like it's trying to escape. The air has shifted again. It's not colder exactly. It's heavier, like the atmosphere itself has grown suspicious of your presence. Pietro is already up, packing slowly, his movements too methodical for someone who's only half awake. You don't speak. You don't have to. The sixth coin sits in your pouch now, the tower broken and singed, and the two of you haven't talked about it since last night. Not because it doesn't matter, because it matters too much. By midday, the forest thins out, revealing a field so empty it feels deliberate. No birds, no bugs, no scattered brush or forgotten fence, just flat yellowed grass and a single path cutting through it like a scar. Your captain calls a halt. He's paler today. Looks like he hasn't slept, which is concerning because you know he hasn't been on watch. He's muttering to himself again. Something about circles in motion, fulfilling presence, and the eye that marks the wheel. The men pretend not to notice. Aldo, to his credit, still manages a joke about fighting windmills and whether this is some kind of agricultural ambush. Pietro doesn't laugh. You keep walking. You crest a rise and find yourself facing nothing. Well, almost nothing. There's a small stone structure in the center of the clearing square, low worn with time. Not a shrine, not a fort. A vault, maybe. No door, no roof. Just four walls and something etched into the far side. The circle, again. Only this time, it's joined by a full set of symbols, sun tree gate wheel, and tower. You step closer. They've been carved with precision, and not recently. These aren't part of some game or scavenger hunt. They've been here longer than the trees that surround them. Pietro moves beside you. He points. There's an indentations in the stone, a shallow hollow shaped like a coin. You nod. You pull out the sixth coin, the tower. You place it in the hollow. It fits. There's a sound, low, metallic. Not a click, but a tone, like something very old and very tired just stirred in its sleep. The captain rides up behind you. He says nothing for a moment, just stares. Then very softly, so it's true. You turn. What's true? He swallows. The contract wasn't with Florence, or Luca, or Sienna. You stare at him. It was with them. Who's them? He doesn't answer. He dismounts, walks forward, and kneels in front of the stone wall. 3 generations of my family have waited for this. I thought it was a myth, a story to scare the weak into obedience, but it's real. The 6 signs, the coins, the watcher in the woods. Aldo arrives panting. Hey, sorry, but did you say watcher in the woods out loud just now? The captain nods. They've been observing us. Pietro steps back. For what? To see if we'd complete the cycle, he says. to see if the coins would return. You frown. What happens now? Before anyone can answer, the wall begins to shift. The stone beneath the coins glows faintly pale gold, like dawn through thick fog. A seam splits open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into the earth. You don't move. No one speaks. The captain stands, looks to you. This is where the real contract begins, he says. I thought we were hired to defend Florence. You were hired to arrive here. You glance at Pietro. He looks more tired than scared. You check your pouch. Only one coin remains inside now. The blank one. You hand it to the captain. He takes it reverently, as if it's the final piece of a prayer. He steps down into the vault and vanishes, not into darkness, into light. You follow, because you have come this far, because someone wanted you here, because something is waiting. The stairs are dry, smooth, too smooth to be old. The air is warm. The walls begin to glow as you descend dim lines of etched symbols that pulse gently. You reach a chamber, circular, and in the center a table, stone, around it 6 seats, empty until now. The captain takes one. You hesitate, then sit. Pietro joins you, and then a voice, not in your ears, in your head. We have waited, it says. You are chosen, but you may choose. The wall ahead shimmers. Images flicker across at places. You don't recognize people dressed in clothes. You've never seen skies you can't name. Wars not yet fought, names not yet written. Then the images stop. The table glows. Your coin, the tower, melts into the stone. You're asked a question, silently, deeply. Do you accept? You don't answer with words. You just nod, because somewhere inside you this all makes sense. And everything before this was just the march. The chamber dims slowly like a lantern being gently shuttered. The glow from the stone fades into a steady warmth beneath your fingertips. You remain seated for a while. No orders, no banners, no enemies, no coins left to chase. Just the hush of a place that waited longer than anyone can remember, and a quiet that asks nothing of you except to rest. Pietro sits beside you, breathing evenly, his eyes closed but not asleep. Maybe he understands what this place is, maybe not. It doesn't matter anymore. Understanding is optional now. The table is still. The walls hum with something old, older than your captain's family stories, older than this forest, maybe older than the wars themselves. A rhythm like breath, like waiting is over. Above you, the ceiling of the vault seems to shimmer faintly with stars that shouldn't be there, constellations that don't belong to any sky you've known. They blink, gently pulse like memory, and begin to fade one by one. You lie back on the stone floor. It's surprisingly warm, solid, not uncomfortable. You let your arms relax, your breathing slow. Let your muscles melt from weeks of marching nights, of watching meals made from hope and hard cheese. Let it all fall away. In the quiet, you think of the olive grove, the humming, the pigeon with the ribbon, the boot hanging from the flagpole, the soup made from regret and possibly rocks. You smile because somehow it mattered, not in the way people sing songs about, but in the way things find their place. The light dims, your eyelids grow heavier, and at last, without worry, without watch, without wait, you sleep.